I want to talk about the 3 biggest training mistakes I've made in bodybuilding so far after about 15 years. Hopefully by addressing these mistakes and pitfalls, I can help educate people further to improve their muscle mass and help them lose fat and just get more out of their gym experience. Probably my biggest mistake was counting reps and sets and exercises rather than just measuring effort. So what I mean by this is you can create any program you want, but if you don't try hard in that set, it doesn't really do anything. I mean, you'll get results initially. Beyond a certain point, you're only going to get so far. I was actually training at a gym where I only had 26 kilogram dumbbells. And that's actually probably what I trained with for the first 10 years of my training career. I had very limited equipment. I had very basic leisure centre sort of gym setup. It wasn't great, but I still built most of my muscle doing that. That's what I realised it was the effort that I learned to apply early on. Now, going back a bit, I think the first 5 years of my training, my pants. Absolute waste of time. Now, I did build a good physique up to that point, but it's not until I really start to notice the harder I work, the more I get. Now, with that being said, I'm not saying work hard as in do 40 sets for legs in the gym. I'm saying perhaps give yourself a time limit in the gym, maybe 40 minutes, an hour, something like that. And perhaps even say, okay, I'm going to do 10 sets a day for legs. So the quads, hams, glutes, calves. And see what you can do in that time. Now, if you know you're only training legs, say, once per week, you're going to say, all right, well, I've got 4 sets for quads today, 2-3 sets for hamstrings, something like that. I'm going to make them work. Those sets are going to be hard. Because you're going to come back in the next week, do the same thing again, but you have to measure effort. So what I'm suggesting to a lot of people now is just maybe do 5 to 10 total sets in a workout, assuming you're training about 3 or 4 times per week, and just make every set count. So go until you can no longer lift the weight safely anymore. So try to get to what they call technical muscular failure. Now there's a lot of contention right now talking about reps in reserve, how close to failure you should get. Ultimately, the best physiques are going to be acquired by those people that have tried the hardest. Now, like I'm saying, I'm trying hard in the gym, not trying long in the gym. There's a difference. And what you'll notice is if you're saying, okay, I'll do 20 sets in the gym, I'll go to failure in every single one of them. You're not. The reality is you're not. Ronnie Coleman didn't do it. Dorian Yates didn't do it. Jay Cutler didn't do it. Phil Heath didn't do it. Cedric McMillan didn't do it. Sean Roden didn't do it. Tom Platz actually didn't do it. But they all had one thing in common. They tried hard. Now, what some of them had to do was they had to leverage volume over intensity to still get that effect. But the reality is most of them trained really hard in the very earlier years of development, and that's what gave them that mass. Now, as they got bigger, they had to change things up a bit. They maybe had to add a bit more volume, but train to a less degree in terms of intensity. That allowed them to have more joint integrity and perhaps maybe a bit longer career in bodybuilding. Now, with that being said, I don't think that's necessary. I think the same person get the same benefit from training, whether it be from 6 sets or 20 sets, providing those 6 sets are really fucking hard. Now, mistake number 2. I alluded to this in the last point, but I think a lot of people focus on programs rather than training principles. So what I mean by this is I used to fixate on doing, 10 sets of 10 German volume training, FST7, 7 sets of 10 with short breaks between it. I tried everything, every training routine you could think of. The reality is they're all quite hard. So it taught me, okay, it's just about working hard. Now there's some very obvious things when it comes to training in terms of principles. You just need to move a weight under load. That's going to give you best adaptation in terms of maintaining flexibility, mobility, strength, speed if you're training for that. And just being bigger overall in terms of more muscle mass, which can help set off or at least mitigate osteoporosis, osteopenia, and other wasting sort of diseases. So some mainstays of good training programs that I think should be apparent in everyone's kind of regime. The role of progressive overload, appropriate exercise selection, safe training, frequency, but that's frequency that allows you to recover, to adapt and become stronger, faster, better than last time. So if you're not doing that, you're training probably too frequently. Now, those sort of key principles apply to any training plan. They can be used probably throughout your whole entire weightlifting, bodybuilding, gym career, I think. Now, point number 3, doing excessive training volume without proper recovery. So I touched on this again, like in the last segment. I think people tend to do too much volume, but not to the point that it improves their results. Now, more isn't always better. I'd say training harder is better, yes, but more of nothing doesn't make more from nothing. If that makes sense. The idea is to do a good set, ideally a perfect set, if that's even possible. Then that's all you need. You don't need more than that. I think the idea isn't to do as much as possible, it's about to do as little as possible. Now, that being said, it's about training intensity. So what you'll notice is the harder you train, the less you can train. It kind of makes sense. You have a limited recovery capacity, a limited resource capacity between each workout. So the way you work that out is you say, okay, Monday, day 1 of your program, I'm going to lift 100 kilos on a chest press. I'm going to go for 8 reps. Okay, fine. You do that 8 reps. You get to technical muscular failure. You might do 2, maybe 3, maybe even 4 sets. By that point, probably say, switch up the exercises just because I don't want people to get repetitive strain injury from doing the same thing too often. Then from there, you look at maybe training 4 or 5 days later. Did you improve from day 1 to day 4 or 5? Yes. Okay, that's fine. You continue doing the same weight. So you're doing 100 kilos, 9 reps, for example. You need to work out for yourself what you need to increase, whether it be weight or reps. But either way, there has to be some element of progressive overload. Now, however, if you don't recover from that workout in the first instance, and say on day 4 or 5, you notice your progression, your weights, your overload is not overloaded. In fact, you're doing less reps, less weight than last time. That's a significant factor because it suggests that you should take an extra day or 2 longer to recover. And the best measurement we really have if we're getting stronger, which usually correlates with more muscle size, is the muscular strength. So the progressions in the gym when you're doing different exercises. So that's probably the main thing you look at outside of maybe waist measurements, arm measurements, things like that work out your body composition. But on a day by day or at least session by session kind of scale, you can see, I've got stronger. The chances are you probably got more muscular. That's kind of how it works, generally speaking. So we touched a little bit about the decreased exercise performance. I want to say a little bit now about some of the consequences that if you take it too far. So you keep going in that training deficient state where you're just doing more and more, but you're getting worse. That does happen. That can lead to, or is a symptom of, overtraining. And it can increase the risk of injury, because if you're just doing too much, the chances are you can't focus as well. So that easy set you're doing could actually be more injurious, if that's even a word, than a set which is really hard, because you're not focused as much. So with training, remember you're doing something pretty much unnatural. It's not natural to lift weights. It's natural to move, yes, but the weights in the kind of patterns we do in the gym to build muscle, not exactly natural, so we have to be very cautious of doing it. So with this, I want people to keep in mind the idea of smart and balanced programming. That way you can ensure you recover between training sessions, incorporate maybe some sort of auto-regulation. You don't have to stick to a strict program. Just change things up a bit. Okay, my chest wasn't very recovered from last time. Take an extra day off. Is your sleep properly managed? Are you eating enough food? There are things to look at as well, of course. So to recap everything I've just said, measure effort. Focus less on the reps performed. Focus on training principles rather than trying to create the perfect model program. Now, the other thing, I would not be doing excessive training volume, at least without proper recovery, where you've measured your recovery rate, you've worked out what you can progress from in the gym. Now, hopefully that's been useful to you guys. If you like the video, click like, leave a comment, subscribe. And if you want some help about creating your own training program, how to build muscle like I have and many other people that I know have, I'm probably the best person in this space to really talk about in terms of building muscle on the carnivore diet specifically. Thanks very much. Take care. build muscle and lose fat on the carnivore diet.